Give me a cue.
Okay, I'm here with Lanny Lance Anderson, born and raised in the town of Red House, and then some. And he's going to tell us a little bit about the area of Allegany State Park, of which he worked in, and his father's namesake, Anderson, is Dade Anderson, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
And that
Yep.
is Anderson Trail there in the park.
Yep.
So his dad was, your dad was a
Park ranger.
ranger there
Yep.
many moons ago. So.
Many moons ago. Yeah.
Okay. You were just telling me that at the entrance there, Red House, back when you were a kid, you lived right there. Of course, the houses are no longer in existence, but there's a number of buildings right there. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. As you egress off of 86 at exit 19, as you go around, I guess they call that a four-leaf clover. You would have driven over several houses of old Red House, of what used to be part of the community of Old Red House. I think, I believe where we lived, there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7 houses, just a small conglomerate of houses in that little area of Red House. And of course the road off of Route 17, then it would have been Old 17.
Right.
The road from 17 ran up through the middle of them into the park. So everybody who went to the park in those days had to go through all of those houses. And I'm saying in that one small grouping of houses, there were 6 or 7 houses, but there were several grouping of houses all the way up from Route 17 off the reservation right into the entrance of the park. There's a lot of folks that lived up through there. Actually, several families. Dave Carr's family was up in there.
Oh, Dave, yeah.
Yep, and as you would drive up into the park, you'd pass his house. Gordon Schultz was up in there. Gordon worked for the park probably his whole life, but his home was up in there too. There was one schoolhouse, one-room schoolhouse, where all the kids attended that particular school. And then as you kind of backtrack back toward Route 17, you'd have went through that little community or that little conglomeration of houses where we lived. And again, just to reiterate, that would have been right under the exit 19 that goes into the park today. You drove over those houses if you ever exited there. There was a house, a guy, last name Stevens, first name Olin, him and his wife Doris, Olin and Doris Stevens, owned a tourist house, and it was a real nice place on the road, and they made their living by renting rooms in the house, and also behind their house they had some cabins, some real small cabins, and they would rent those cabins to people who were going to the park for the week or whatever and did not desire to stay in the park, and maybe because of price or whatever, they would rent those cabins and stay there as well.
If I may ask, what in proximity of the current Red House toll booth there, where would that, is this the area you're talking about, that, and backtracking to the course of the cloverleaf of the 86 exit?
Yep, it would be back in, going back toward Route 17, from where the toll booth is today, going backwards to Route 17.
Okay. I remember when they were building 86. Of course, we were both quite young, but it was quite disruptive. And it was my understanding that they nipped some of the acreage from the park at that time to put 86 through as it currently stands. Is that correct, or?
Yeah, I believe that would be correct. As they bought or they exercised their right of eminent domain on the houses that were there, on the families and the private holdings in Red House. They would buy them in order to put the highway through and the bridges and things like that. And yeah, I believe it probably did have some effect, or took some pieces or parcels of Parks and Rec at that time. As in order to put the highway through, they had to, I don't know if they bought those or they just, they assumed that they owned those so they could put a highway through there anyways, yeah, go.
Now, there's Hatchery Road, which is also sometimes referred to, I believe, as the road to nowhere.
Yeah.
Of course, it goes up to the Seneca Nation fish hatchery up there,
Yep.
right by the Catholic, what was once a Catholic chapel or church there. And then beyond that, it loops off. Do you recall where that used to go?
You mean it loops to the left?
No, it dead ends, and there's a loop there. But it looked like at one time before they built the 86 there, the new 86, that it went somewhere, and I've heard it referred to as the road to nowhere. But are you familiar with that at all?
I am very familiar with that. If you were stood on our front porch and our front lawn at that time and looked in that general direction where the road to nowhere is, there was just a plain hill there. There was a gravel pit on the bottom of that hill. There was a sizable gravel pit that was active, and they, they harvested dirt out of there for several years. And then behind that gravel pit would have been that hill. If you drive up on that hill now, or you can drive your car up there on the highway, you can sit up there and look at the whole valley of Red House and see the whole, from up to the state park, probably almost down to the reservation line where the houses and the roads would have set. But yeah, that was actually, I remember my folks called that Blueberry Hill, because there was a bunch of wild blueberries up there, and a lot of the folks in that town or in that little community that I had shared with you before, during the end of summer when the blueberries were ready to be picked, they would head up there and pick blueberries for the whole day, and there was enough of them to take care of everybody. There was a lot of blueberries, but they were wild.
They're little tiny ones.
But they were real good.
Yeah.
You put enough sugar to them, they taste great.
Sure. Bears got up there, and
bears are always up there.
Yeah.
Somebody always had a story about running into a bear up on Blueberry Hill. Probably the same bear every year. He said, "This is good eating up here." So he hung around up there his whole life.
I'm going to conclude the session just momentarily here, and we'll pick up in just